Hi guys, it's Alana Jacob here with sitting down with Lily Abdelmalek for a quick interview. And Lily is the owner and head trainer for DSA Sports Performance in Marietta, Georgia. She runs a speed, agility, and strength concentrated training system for athletes of all ages, from middle school, high school to professional. DSA Sports Performance holds NFL offseason training camps, as well as NBA, WNBA, MLB, lacrosse, athletic training. And Lily, at your facilities, you offer hot and cold tub recovery, like I said, strength and agility training, batting cages, pitching machines, and that's just to name a few. So you have a lot of success as an entrepreneur and as a trainer. But I want to just start by getting to know you a little bit more as a person. So what was your upbringing like, and how did it contribute to what you're doing now, your career now?
Okay, well, I am actually a first generation Egyptian American. So my family came from Egypt. I'm the youngest of four. So I think like hard work was kind of already instilled. I mean, it didn't really kind of take place in my life until probably I really started engaging in something I really loved, like sports performance. Um, but I think just, I have an older brother, two older sisters, so I'm the youngest, and just running around with them and kind of dabbled a little bit in sports, but never really found like one sport I concentrated in growing up. So it was more like playing in the streets, just kind of having fun. So I grew up in St. Louis, ended up going to the University of Florida. And then I got into human performance, sports training, and I ended up with an internship in Atlanta. And I started dabbling in sports performance. I was kind of going back and forth between that and physical therapy, but I realized that physical therapy was a little slow for me. And so I ended up being able to kind of learn about both sides and being able to have the best of both worlds. So I kind of stayed on track with the sports performance aspect. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, so kind of started off on the physical therapy route and then decided, this is more your speed training is something that you're more interested in. And that kind of goes back to, like you said, childhood, playing in the streets with your siblings and your friends and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So kind of fast forward to DSA and the kind of the inner workings in the beginning. When you had the idea to kind of shift your mindset from physical therapy to training, was DSA in your head? Was being an entrepreneur, starting your own business already in your head, or is this
absolutely not?
Absolutely not.
No, I actually coming out of college, I finished my internship and it was like, okay, I could go back to school and get my doctorate in PT, but I'm a broke kid and I wanted to make some money. So I started training and they hired me on. I worked for two different sports training companies before I started my own. And I remember like another trainer asking me, like, would you own your own, business? Would you just train on your own? And I was like, no. Like, I saw my dad own his business. I knew who owned the last company I worked for. And I was just like, absolutely not. It's a headache. It's too much of your life. And then here I am. So it was not in my plan at all.
That's funny. I didn't know that your dad was also had his own business as well. So it runs in the family.
It does.
Okay, nice. So what did the inner workings of the beginning stages of your brand and your company look like? So what did the building blocks look like for DSA?
I mean, truthfully, when I kind of got pushed into running my own business and working for myself. So the last company that I had worked for, and this is back in like 2007, 8, 9, they relocated down to Florida and I stayed here in Atlanta. And a lot of the pro guys and young athletes that were training with that last company, it was called DSA Sports, they just kept training with me. They knew I knew the program really well. And I guess, that spoke dividends as me in training at the time. But it was just like, well, I got to keep these guys in shape. I did it for the love of it. Didn't really have like a set foundation or business plan. That's just not what was driving me. What was driving me was I want to see these guys do well. So then I started my business, and it started off with, I need to pick a business name and, just your basics, get a business account. And then it grew throughout the years, but the foundation was always just training and seeing the best out of people. And that's, I think, how it grew.
Okay, and that kind of goes into my next question and maybe even answers it. So you've been training some athletes for years. I know that Jaylen Brown, the guard for the Celtics, he's one of them. You've been training him since he was in 8th grade. So what would you say as a business owner, as a trainer, as an entrepreneur, what would you say is the key to keeping clientele for so long?
Yeah, I mean, I think just wanting to see the best in them, and I think they feel that it's a family kind of environment. They know that I work hard and I work hard for them. And I think they see that and they feel that. And there's been success. So, when we decrease the likelihood of injuries, and there's a progression in how they are moving and becoming like one of the best athletes in the world, they kind of stick to that formula. And I think that's what I've established with them. So
also kind of touching on the beginning stages of DSA from a business perspective, did you experience any kind of competition or or in surrounding areas?
Yeah. So, at the time when I first started training, for myself and like just creating the business, my mindset was not at all like that there's competition out there. It was literally, I'm here for so and so and so and so, and we just go to work. Now over the years, as my business has grown, obviously there becomes a sense of, I guess you could say competition, but I always tell people like I'm not in competition with anybody. So I feel that strongly about like my program and what we've been able to accomplish. So I won't say like now that I have a sense of competition, it's more like I want to do better than I did the previous year for my athletes. So I want to add more. I want to bring more to the table for them. So I guess you could say I'm just in competition with what I did before, the last off season.
Yeah.
So.
And, DSA is kind of like your baby. Like you said, you started it just because you enjoyed training those athletes and you wanted to create an environment for them. So was DSA something that was fully funded by you or fully funded by, friends or coworkers that you ended up founders, or did you get
so
invested?
when I established DSA in 2009, I had no money. I had the money that was coming in from my training. So I was very poor. I really didn't make too much, but literally by the grace of God, like, the business that was coming in, it started like keeping me in a good position to just keep moving forward. And there were times where, family members were like, you can't live like this. But something in my heart was just like, I just want to keep doing it. This is what I love to do. And I think part of being an entrepreneur looking back was taking on risks. And that was a risk for me is, do I stay training, making very little money? And I was young. I was like 28, 27 when I first started my business. Or do I take the safe route and let's say go back to school and accumulate more loans and, go that route? So I just kind of followed my heart. It was my gut. Didn't know where it was going to go. Didn't know how big it was going to get. But I think just me taking on that risk and then getting to a point where I started expanding, as it grew. I knew it was time for me to get my own space because I had been renting space from, other gym locations that were already, just a full business. And one of my, athletes decided he wanted to invest. And so he went in with me to open up the facility that we are currently at now.
Very cool. That's awesome. That kind of
Mhm.
also goes into my next question as well. And my answer it. So obviously you're not the only trainer there at DSA. A business is not something that you can do alone. So I'm sure you have a solid team with you. Is there anyone specific that you feel like DSA would not be what it is today if it wasn't for them?
I mean, I think I've gotten to a point now where I've created such great synergy with the trainers that we work alongside. Between myself and the other trainers, I have like 2 speed agility trainers, two strength coaches, and truthfully, like, I wouldn't replace anybody. Like, we all work so good together. I think we work with everybody as a full program. So it's not like one person does more than the other. Like, we all work together for the greater good of just one athlete, I guess you could say. So I think that's why, we also have found such great success. And I think everybody knows, like, if this trainer isn't here, I know so and so can pick up where we left off. So we all work well together.
And what did that hiring process look like? Did you hire friends or people that were recommended by other athletes or people that were at your previous job?
So for me, I needed people who understood my program, who understood like the ultimate goal and, how I kind of like to run business. And I thought, people who have trained under me or understand the program and who have played at a high level, um, so far has done really well with us. So, I'm always still like looking for new trainers that want to be a part of the family. But, I think it was just more, people with experience in sports performance, as well as those who have had experience in playing at a high level. So I have like some former NFL athletes, coaches who have been maybe not have played at a high level, but have been involved at a high level with athletes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And kind of shifting gears back to you and your personal experience with being a business owner. We kind of talked about this in the beginning too, before we got on the call, but what, or how far does your business bleed into like your personal life?
That's the hard part. It does take up a lot. Like, this is my life. So that's why I tell people, like, DSA is my life. It even overlaps with like my friendships. Like, we talk about business. They give me, advice sometimes, with things that I may not think about, or, different paths that I can take to help it grow. So it definitely, when you're an entrepreneur, like, I think part of that success comes from the amount of sacrifices you kind of take on. So there's not very much personal life.
Yeah, understandable. I know you're working around the clock. So has there been like a change or a shift from the beginning to now? Like, do you feel like there's less pressure or less weight or less personal life bleeding, or how does that work?
It has grown so much. So when I think about like where I was in 2009 to where I'm at going into 2024, that's a lot of years of running, a business. Even if it was at a very small level back then, I think, you take on more responsibilities, as business grows. So in hindsight, looking back then, it's like, yeah, I didn't make money really at all. So that was the sacrifice I had taken on, right? Now I'm probably more at more stable place financially, but so much business, so much, just financial analysis and, just kind of going through what can we do for next month to, increase, revenue or, things like that you start thinking about, and it takes up more of your time. So I would say like back then, it was money, the sacrifice, the downfall was money. Now it's more of my time.
Okay. And do you have, is that something that you keep track of and you're kind of working on as far as marketing, like you mentioned, increasing revenue? Is that something that you are working on yourself, or do you have your family to help you out, or a team?
Yeah, I have a team. So obviously, like, you have your CPA, I have a business consultant, I have advisors that kind of help me understand, like, okay, what are your expenses? What's your growth? What can we hold, in next quarter? What do we need to do differently when we know X amount of months are your slow months, or these are our high months, even though you might see like numbers grow from like a gross revenue standpoint, expenses grow, every year, like rent goes up, equipment costs more. So it's like just trying to understand that balance, to maintain being in the positive each month. So that's kind of like the aspect, the latter half of like, this journey has been for me. In the beginning, I didn't think about stuff like that. Like I was just literally taking it one day at a time. I wasn't thinking about the future at all. Now that I'm in a position where DSA is a bigger platform, I'm forced to think about stuff like that for the future.
And you stress the importance of the synergy between you and your trainers, but for that, finance team, I guess you could say, did you feel like you were kind of picking out the people that also understood your mission? Was that a focus for you when finding those people as well?
Yeah, I mean, and initially they might not understand, but I think once they get to know me and they understand how the business operates, what's the demographic of the business, how can we make this work, then they kind of understand me a little more. So, but when it came to like the business consultants and the advisors, they were like through friends, people who knew that I could trust them, who would give me sound advice.
Okay. And from 2009 to now, this is a long period of time that I'm asking you to think about, but what was the biggest challenge as a business owner or starting up DSA? What was the biggest challenge that you faced, and how did you overcome that?
My biggest challenge, I think it's a little bit, it's a few of them, but I think my biggest challenge has been operating a facility. So not necessarily the training. The training is so easy to me, like that's like, I know that like the back of my hand, like that's easy. But operating a facility, a building, that can be challenging for sure. That's like a whole nother business in itself, just being able to manage, the lights and the, just payroll and taxes. And these are a lot of things that kind of go into operating a facility. So that's been a challenge. Everybody always asks me if being a female in this business is challenging. I guess I don't really like, I love it so much that I don't necessarily think about it that much, of how, how rare it is for a female to be in this business, because it's such a male dominated occupation. But I feel like I've made such a staple with like the kind of athletes that come through here and the amount of success they get, that I don't really feel it that much. But I always know like it's there, like that thought of there's a woman, who's a head trainer, who owns a facility, a business, who runs a facility. So I would say that sometimes that's challenging, because even today, after years of being in this business, people will sit there and be like, you train athletes. I'm like, yes, I do, and I own my own business.
So it's not something that you would say like is a day-to-day like thought, but it does come up every once in a while. Okay.
Mhm.
So what is the most important habit that you've built over the past years of you being a business owner?
I think one, I'm a big prayer warrior. So I feel like it's a time with myself and time to reflect. So I think that's really important to have. And I think just another habit of mine is being very critical about the details of the business. So like I am obsessed with like, um, having a routine every day and looking at what we're generating every day. It's one of those, what do you do at the end of each day and how can we move forward into the next day?
How often do you have meetings with your team to talk about things like that?
Um, Maybe about like once a month we'll have like a team meeting to know like, okay, this is what, we did this month. This is what I want to foresee in the next couple months, just so we're all on the same page.
Okay. And do you have any specific plans? Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, do you have any specific plans for the future of DSA, or what does plotting those kind of plans look like?
I do have plans. I don't know. I don't know when they're specifically gonna, come to fruition, but I do have plans to see DSA grow. Um, it's almost like starting a business all over again. Yeah. So I am in the place of, okay, I have to write up a concept. I have to write up kind of a business plan all over again. So taking those things step by step so that I can get to a point of my goal being right there in front of me.
Okay. And last question for you. If you could give a future upstart any advice before they got started, what would you tell them?
You got to take risks. Because if you don't take a risk, then you're never going to be able to kind of get to a point of meeting your goal. So I would say all of this has been risk. I had to take a risk on myself in the beginning, right? And now it's like, as I see the business grow, I have to take another risk, for my future plans. So it's all a risk and you don't know what's going to happen. So you just got to go with it.
Yeah. Even after all these years, it's like the same thing. It's all about, jumping to the next thing, keeping up with the times and taking those risks. Yeah. Makes sense.
It's all risk. Being an entrepreneur, it is all risk.